Welcome to G42 On Air. As AI and advanced technology scale at lightning speed, this podcast series brings us face to face with the change makers shaping our future. Take your front row seat with me, Amandeep, as we ask how these powerful new technologies are created, how they're transforming our world, and what's coming next. In today's episode, we're focusing on powering the future, AI's impact on energy demands, and the role of renewables. To understand all of this, I'm joined here in the studio by Fouad Ibrahim, the Senior Director of Infrastructure Planning at Khazna, and Alexis Issaharoff, who's the Board Director at Tenet. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. Big, broad issues here, but I think I've got the right experts in the hot seat. I'm going to begin with you first, Fouad. When we speak about the rise in energy demands, there's a paradox there, and I know you're going to explain this to me.
Thank you very much. AI needs to be part of a factory that's going to be building this technology and allowing it to grow more and more. Khazna, as a data center provider, we design, build, and operate data centers. This is the factory where the AI is being accommodated. Now, of course, if we go back a little bit to the old days, 10 years ago, we were talking about a demand of 3 megawatt of IT as a power. Now we're talking about 100 megawatts of IT. And that's a huge change in a 10 years time. So AI requires more power, and that's where we want to look and see how this impact can be solved in a different way.
And the paradox there being that AI-driven solutions are increasing the reliance on energy consumption. However, has AI got a role, Alexis, in solving our energy dependence?
Yeah, well, absolutely. As we said, the word factory and AI is like, we're talking about a factory of intelligence. So, I mean, there are a lot of answers that we have not been able to answer yet. For example, like what will be the future sources of energy at a very low cost, very, very high efficiency, and working all of them at a very, very competitive cost. Even though now we have plenty of them, AI will facilitate the development of all of these technologies. They will help them even more to be mainstream, and will also indicate us ways to explore into other directions where, thanks to that intelligence component, we can find out which ones would be the ideals for the journey that we have ahead.
So thanks to the intelligence, it will help us with the journey ahead. But as Fouad pointed out, there's an inherent problem with the energy dependence.
True. I mean, probably, just to clarify, I mean, at the beginning, the paradoxical example will be like AI initially will be taking a lot of resources and will not be giving it as much at the beginning. So eventually, down the road, we will be starting to see the benefits of the AI, something that at the beginning is not that obvious, because we're talking a lot about the consumption and all the energy that will require, and pretty much every time we talk about a data center equals the consumption of this small village or town, and all the data centers in the world equals Sweden or Germany energy consumption. So, I mean that it is true that at the beginning, we will not be able to see immediate benefits based on the level of consumption. But that consumption is absolutely needed, because the answers coming along the way in the near future will actually help to revert that initial energy expense, and how this will be manifest with much more efficiency in all the equipment from chips. Imagine that you get a 10 times more efficient AI chip, and that would be thanks to AI actually.
So I know Fouad is very keen to come in now on this point.
Yes. I just want to add to Alexis, like in Khazna, we are building one of the state-of-art command and control center. This command and control center is going to be monitoring all our data centers. Okay. AI will be part of it. So when we are hosting the AI, this is the time, as Alex was saying, that we're going to be utilizing it to analyze all the data that we are having and help us to reduce the power needed and be more efficient. It's not a matter that it's only a power consumption. I totally agree. There is a big benefit, and always I would say the positive impact of AI, which we'll see not only in data centers, in the medical field, in tomorrow education, in everywhere. However, we need to plan it properly, and that's one of the things that here we are lucky to be in UAE as an infrastructure. When things are being planned, you are allowing the authorities and the collaboration between us as Khazna and G42 with the authorities to plan ahead and allow different resources, renewable, nuclear, whatever can be available to be built and have this mixture to power up the AI and get the positive part of it.
And that's a really intriguing solution that you're offering there. Tell us a bit more about the different renewables that feed into this.
Yes. Of course, we're very lucky to be here that there is sun, that we can use solar. Solar was for a certain period of time is really not easy to be found, but now it's viable financially from all aspects. We shouldn't wait until covering the whole power requirement, even if it's going to be partial. Let's start and plug this into. That's one of the things, solar. We have a lot of other things. We're talking about hydrogen. From now, this needs to, that's coming. That's coming. We need from now to speak to our vendors as data centers and collaborate with them and be prepared for that. Nuclear power, again, it's available here. Other countries will go out and look at SMRs, which are small modular reactors that can help us and to be clean as much as we can to power up this AI, which will benefit us at the end.
And I like the intriguing way that you put that. You said state-of-the-art command centers there. Alexis, to build on Fouad's point about renewables, of course, you bring a worldwide expertise in renewables advising the UN. Elaborate on this, please.
Well, in the renewables, probably we have two different. They work in a different. One of the renewables, like wind and solar, they have some intermittency as a factor. There are some other ones that they have a base load, like they are pretty stable, so you can count on them pretty much 24/7. So that we're referring to hydropower, geothermal, and tidal, even though it's predictive, so you know pretty much the outcome. Will not be actually considered base load, but it's much easier to predict than solar and wind. So addressing these 2 points make a big difference, because when data centers, as Fouad, who is the expert, knows, is very steady consumption 24/7. So if you work with hydro and geothermal, you are in a very safe hands. When you go with solar and wind, you do need a buffer. The buffer would be the battery, in which it will pretty much stabilize the load. And as Fouad was saying, the hydrogen, now most data centers, they have diesel as a backup. So nowadays, there are different solutions in which either involve HPO, that is like a much better fuel rather than diesel, and hydrogen. Hydrogen is becoming a very interesting solution because actually the economics are starting to work. And if you acknowledge renewables plus hydrogen, you will be getting a big part of the energy ecosystem will be covered by.
And you mentioned geothermal technology, and there's certain countries which are at the forefront of this. For example, Kenya comes to mind.
True. I mean, of course, not all renewables apply to all markets except probably solar. Solar will be the only one. That's why it's considered to be the most democratic source of energy, because everybody at some point will get it. Wind probably will come second. Geothermal ID, of course, the largest concentration close to volcanoes in the north, Iceland, and different places. In Africa, there are some areas. and closer to the mountains and due to the terrain that they have geothermal. Also, talking about geothermal, actually, we do have access to it, but the deep is different. There are some places that you need to go very deep to benefit from that. So ideally, in places like Kenya, the good thing is that it's closer to the surface, so you don't need to go that deep. So the cost of it it can be manageable.
And I appreciate that we've gone very deep, very early on into some of these examples, but it's super interesting. Fouad, coming back to you, Alexis sets that up very well. Solar, super democratic. Of course, here in the UAE, we're at the forefront of revolutionizing solar energy. Bring us up to speed with what Khazna is doing and how unique it is on a global scale.
That's what I'll just catch from Alex's last point about Kenya and the geothermal. Was just announced at G42 and us, Khazna, and with the government there, we're going to be building data centers there using the geothermal. And that's also can help us to change even the cooling technology that we can be using there. That's coming and touching point on this. So one of the important things, and that will drive the answer to this question, is where do you select to build your data center? So site selection is something that's very important. It's not anymore just piece of land somewhere, even if it's driven by power. It's where is this source of power coming? How can we make it renewable or sustainable? How much of it contributes to that? So I'll give an example in Masdar. When Khazna started in the first data center that they built in Masdar, now Masdar became a campus for us.
And so Masdar, for our audience who might not be familiar with it, Masdar is based in Abu Dhabi, and it's
a sustainable city that's really making sure that they are going towards this. And we started with the land for a data center of a 3 megawatt. Now we are talking more than 60 megawatt campus is being on this. This didn't come just as a choice. I'll come back to the point of the solar. We had solar there. Though it's not covering the full, we just 7 megawatt of it, but that's our contribution. And with this contribution, we are saving. We're saving from environmental, even from operational perspective. And I agree, storage for solar is going to be difficult. We need to be backed up with generators. That's why we made sure that our generators that will back up this power are having not only diesel capability, also the vegetable oil, which is something that's being recycled and we are using now biofuel. So stability from solar, maybe here we are really blessed and having that. And there is a lot of partners that will help to develop this, and as much nuclear, as I said before. Outside, we're looking at geothermal. We would look at wind. We would look at even free cooling to reduce, this is as a technology of cooling, to reduce our power consumption. It's not a matter of only using the power. We need to look with our vendors how to make sure that we reduce the power needed so we can plug in this combination. If we have wind with solar, we have solar with nuclear, what geothermal with different type of technologies that from cooling perspective that will allow me to reduce the consumption, that will make it more sustainable and relax.
You mentioned the different types of technology. It sounds very cutting edge. How does that compare to what's happening on a global scale?
That's being a trend everywhere. Now, one of the things that Khazna is doing, that we are, all our data centers are LEED Gold certified as a certification from sustainability, going through the cycle from design, build, until operating it. Now, let's agree that we as Khazna, we are a hyperscaler data center provider. It's all linked. Everybody and the international trends is going to reach to a point that if you are really not sustainable and not looking into renewable, you're not going to be part of this game. Although you are needed, but you need to contribute on that. And so it's a list, it's a chain that will never get lost from the location, from the equipment and vendors that you're buying, and from even the end client who's using it. And that's where we need this experience of Alex and the team that help us to make this combination between vendors, technologies, availability, and make sure that we are sustainable.
Well, Fouad certainly needs your experience there, Alexis, and we need your input at this point. I'm intrigued to know from your international experience, viewing what Khazna's doing, viewing what Fouad and his team are doing. How does it compare to your understanding of how revolutionary this is?
Well, actually, what Fouad and Khazna is doing is absolutely amazing. I mean, they're leading all the efforts in UAE. They are the G42. They're part of the G42 group, which is becoming a big, one of the number one players in the world. So what I can say is that within the renewables ecosystem, we also need to believe in how we optimize the approach. The optimized approach is you want to think into like ecosystem structure and see how can I benefit from all possible synergies. So I give you an example. In one of the solutions that will be ideal, and we are just seeing the deploying in Denmark and in some other markets, is about having floating islands that combine solar arrays, CSP, concentrated solar power, wind, batteries, and actually this island can host very easily data centers. And on top of this, it will be surrounded by offshore wind. And on top of this, you will be also able to benefit from tidal power, like the wave power, right? The tidal. So you will be getting 4 or 5 renewables all simultaneously, plus an element of free cooling that will be the ocean. So
I'm trying to visualize this. This sounds very sci-fi. How realistic and how soon could we see something like this?
In Denmark, there is already.
There is, okay.
Not such level of comprehension. What it has is solar and a battery and a bit of wind.
Okay. So
it's not really rocket science. It's actually pretty much existing elements, putting them all together. You have floating solar, you have floating wind, you have pretty much all of the technology. You have floating data centers and batteries. So what I'm trying to say is that when we want to address the issue, we need to be very, very creative and try to see, because we don't want to say, okay, let's just put solar and batteries. Okay, that would be good enough. But what if we go the extra mile and we say, no, let's start from the best of the best. And that would be why I was also talking about this concept, because renewables are quite complementary in nature. Wind and solar complement each other quite well. Normally, when the wind is blowing, the sun is not always shining, and at night you get better wind in general. And so if you benefit from those synergies, you will be reducing heavily the reliance on fossil fuels. So I think that when you pretty much understand this frame, that gives you a lot of ideas to try and to test. And as probably for what I was saying, nuclear is starting to be, you will be listening about nuclear a lot. But one of the things that probably I'm not pro neither against. I do believe that nuclear is green, and I do believe that it has its role. I cannot run it out. But it's true that timeline, and with this I finish, the timeline is quite important, because nuclear requires a level of permitting that takes minimum 4 years, 5 years, and deploying. So we're talking about a quite long time. Even some wind projects offshore may take up to 6 years sometimes. So I think that is important also to consider that as part of the solution.
That's really interesting. So really some thought-provoking strategies there. And you're saying some of this technology does exist, but it's supersizing it, actually having multiple renewables as one combined solution. Fouad, when we speak about, as Alexis is talking there, about optimizing this approach, what are some of the challenges that Khazna is foreseeing, and how can we mitigate against them?
will just add to Alex's part.
You may.
It was really very interesting. We need the AI to do that. This combination, when to utilize the solar, when to have the wind, when to use hydrogen generators, maybe it's beneficial. This link without over-designing things, and I agree, you can put solar and batteries. You just club it and 6 hours a day works this, then it's charging batteries and things. We don't want to go this. We want the AI to use when they analyze the number of points and measurements that will be taken that human beings cannot do, and show really that, okay, you can use the solar with this capacity for that much of hours, then it will convert to an wind, then it's going to be this. It's a multi-thing. It's not a matter of how to do it. It's really to do it in an efficient way. Okay, challenges. Challenges, that's the beauty of it. If you don't have a challenge, you don't have something.
And I love the fact that your eyes sparkle when you talk about the word challenges too.
This is really one of the things that makes me and the team really happy and working on it. So, power. Okay, we always say power. I need power for this. So when I'm planning it, also when I'm communicating with authorities here, I'm communicating in stages. If I go and ask you just can I need 100 megawatt of solar, okay, just to power up my data center, and I know that I'm coming into phases. That's one of the things that I need. It's communication. It's planning. So this needs to be a challenge of availability of power. We need to think of how to have it modular, built in a way that we are utilizing what's existing, and we are allowing also authorities to provide different sources, which again contributes to us. Okay. Technologies. Everybody's complaining this is a harsh environment. Weather. Cooling is a must. Okay. I need to call my vendors. I'll use the cooling. I cannot stop using it. I will use it. And I cannot use a direct free cooling. We agree about that. Weather is hard. Sit with the vendors. I need to find a solution for this. Now it's not going to be 100% reduction, but at least I'm more efficient and trying to contribute in reducing this power that's going to be consumed. Backup generators. If I can depend on different technologies or resources that can be used, that's going to be great. So challenges is always good, and let's have the AI because it will help us a lot in overcoming this challenge. It's a challenge. It's a problem at the beginning, but let's look at the positive impact of it later on. That's going to be contributing.
And I think the way that you've addressed those challenges, you've brought it around full circle to how we began, gentlemen. We started by addressing that paradox within this particular problem. I do feel like we've addressed it there. I have a final question for you both, but before I launch into that, is there anything else that would help our audience understand this particular issue about the rising demand of energy when it comes from data centers that you want to share?
Probably with Fouad permission, being the most senior in the room, I think that and it's an old joke of a talk that we did together. But what probably is quite important to also address the supply chain, because we always talk about ideal, and we all talk about goals and 2030 and 2050, and very rarely we go behind the curtain and try to understand what it really implies, and if we have everything in place to achieve these goals. Because of course it's a no-brainer that the data center capacity want to double or triple. And it's true that there are a lot of raw materials and a lot of parts in the value chain that are ready to do that, and that they will take years and even at full production. So it is true that before in the talk I was expressing that identify the weakest part of the link, the supply chain. Like it could be cranes for big wind turbines, or it could be transformers, or of course chips is obvious, and work around them, addressing them first. Because sometimes what happens is you don't find someone taking control of the whole ecosystem. What you have is the players within that ecosystem making their own assumptions and going at full blown. And one day, when all of that is connected, you notice that, okay, we need now a substation. Or, okay, now we need transmission line. And that would take probably 1, 2, 3 years. And there was that missing part of the putting all the puzzle together. I have seen that in many, many countries. And what is the outcome of that? Like, for example, in solar, you have curtailment, means that you have an amazing big base of solar producing solar, but it will be curtailed. They will be gone. No one will be using it because they were not able to address all the other needs. So I think that if we can, all the stakeholders understand that they need that sort of an umbrella approach, it will streamline the process and it will become very, very successful.
So a holistic approach.
Correct. And someone in charge, someone whose role is, I need to connect the dots and I need this puzzle to make sense. And that is something that we tend to miss a lot because we do, I mean, everybody is very good at what they do. And very rarely there is this whole, like, someone like gluing all of the elements. So I think that having said all of this, if we acknowledge this, it will be of great help to cover that position.
Well, I certainly appreciate you both gentlemen giving us a holistic insight and connecting the dots for us. Fouad, did you want to jump in at that point?
I just want to add that we're talking about digital infrastructure in all sectors in our day-to-day. How this is going to happen without data centers? Data centers are needed. And whatever will going to be installed from an AI or whatever storages or whatever different type of technologies that's being used, that's evolving our life. It's taking us in a different era. Who's not using his mobile now to use internet? Who's not doing gaming internationally? You need a data center. This AI, how the AI works, the AI needs to go into a learning curve where things to address, let me see, all the authorities, the power authority providers, how can they manage really this if they will not have behavior learning to allow capturing all this, and it needs to run for a time to get you a result and then you can use it. How tomorrow we'll do this electrical cars undriven? Now we are using ChatGPT. We are very happy that we're getting everything fast. How this is happening without a data center? We need to have data centers, but we need to address it in a green way.
So you make a very strong argument there for the necessity of AI-driven solutions and data centers. Gentlemen, my final question to you both is, how would you class yourself as an AI optimist or an AI pessimist? Starting with you, Alexis.
Well, I would say that definitely AI optimist. And we are seeing the results on the front of medicine, and we are seeing solving problems that we have not managed to solve. AI will be pretty much playing a big role there. And we have not done, as a species, an amazing work, right? So we are, one of the problems that we face now is based on pretty much flaws in who we are as a species. So I think that AI comes from a neutral aspect in order to complement missing elements within us. So I think that definitely I'm optimist. Of course, there is the Terminator version of this, but again, it's up to us, because at the end of the day, AI will definitely be learning from all of our history data and ourselves. So I think it would be a reflection of pretty much all who we are.
So a very philosophical answer there, Fouad.
Sorry for what?
No, with the peaceful AI, with the white AI, with the green AI, part of AI, because there is also always a dark one. I am always with it. And when I'm seeing how in medicine it made a big change, and how people are being saved because of history, families that are being known. Doctors are not available in hospitals, robotic things. How this can be happen without an AI? I'm not going to talk about other parts of AI, but we need it. We need it. It solved and it went, and I totally agree with that. It went an extra mile on our behalf, because at the end, human beings are having a limit to look in things, certain hours, certain minutes, certain seconds. This is doing a lot. So, AI.
Gentlemen, on that note, if I can thank you for joining us here today at the G42 On Air podcast. Thank you for your insightful answers, your holistic approach, connecting the dots, and certainly addressing the paradox that we began with. I think this is a conversation that starts many more conversations with you both. Please do join us again as you continue to develop this technology and help us understand it. And thank you for joining us today as well. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And join us, please, for the next episode of G42 On Air.
Thank you, Mandeep.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And see you for the next episode of G42 On Air.